This day in sports history. Well, hey, and welcome back to This Day in Sports History. It is January 2nd, and on this day, Jon Gruden coached his favorite game. We had the Epic in Miami, and Atlanta Braves owner Ted Turner blamed vodka tonics for his big mouth. All that plus a history near miss coming up at the end, so stick around. This is going to be fun, and I'll get started right after this. So let's start with what happened on this day in 2000. It was the Millenium Game between the Oakland Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs. So here we were, still breathing a sigh of relief, right? The world's computers didn't crash, planes didn't fall out of the sky. The Earth was still rotating. So we could all sit back, relax, and watch a little bit of NFL football and a classic AFC West matchup. This was a Week 17 matchup, and the math was pretty simple. Chiefs win, they're in the playoffs. Raiders head coach Jon Gruden was on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast last year, and he said this is the one game he'd watch on repeat if he could only watch one game for the rest of his life.
Calendar just kicked over to 2000. I was in my second year coaching the Raiders. I was going to get fired. We were 7-8. We're playing at the Chiefs. All the Chiefs need to do is win this game, beat the Raiders, who they've beaten 100 times in a row, and they win the division, get a home playoff game. We're down 17-0 after about 6 minutes, and this place is rocking, man.
So, yeah, after a Tamrick Vanover 84-yard punt return for a touchdown, a James Hasty pick six of a Rich Gannon pass, and a Pete Stoyanovich field goal, KC led 17-0 after 7.5 minutes. CBS had not even introduced the Chiefs' offensive starters yet. The route was on. At least that's what everybody at Arrowhead Stadium thought. The Raiders finally got on the board, though, with a little defense. Kenny Shedd returned a blocked punt for a touchdown, and then Gruden said Gannon flipped a switch and turned the game around. After Zach Crockett reeled in a Gannon pass for 7, the Raiders took their first lead with this play.
On 3rd and 7, inside shovel. Napoleon Kaufman takes it the distance. Touchdown Raiders.
The Chiefs grabbed the lead back after an Elvis Gerback to Tony Gonzalez TD pass, but John Baker, the designated kickoff man for the Chiefs, he didn't kick field goals, he didn't kick extra points, he didn't punt. He had one job to do, and for the second time that day, he kicked the ball out of bounds, giving the Raiders great field position with under a minute left in the half, and the Raiders took advantage.
Wheatley in the backfield this time with Ritchie. Brown the motion man. Line of scrimmage the 23. A flip for Wheatley. He's got some running room. Tyrone Wheatley into the end zone for the touchdown. Oh, do the Raiders strike quickly or what?
Oakland led 28-24 at the half, and in the second half, the lead changed hands 3 times. And then when Joe Nedney kicked his first field goal of the game with 45 seconds left, the game was tied at 38. The Chiefs had a chance to win it in regulation, though. But Pete Stoyanovich, who at the time was the most accurate kicker in NFL history from 40-plus yards, missed wide left. And then they would be sunk yet again by an inaccurate kicker in overtime. After the Raiders won the toss and elected to receive, Baker kicked it out of bounds for the 3rd time that day, giving the Raiders excellent field position again. They moved down the field to set up Joe Nedney for the game winner.
For the win in overtime. From 33 yards away, Nedney straight through. And the Raiders have done the unexpected. They have spoiled the Kansas City Chiefs party. Seattle is going to the playoffs as the AFC West champions.
When the kick sailed through the uprights, Gruden ran around the field like Jim Valvano after the 1983 NCAA basketball championship. Now, Gruden was not fired. He came back the next year and led Oakland to a 13-win season. How about another OT thriller from the NFL? On this day in 1982, it was the Epic in Miami. Now, this game had a little bit of everything. A lot of offense, a tremendous comeback, a trick play pulled off to perfection for a score, overtime, and Kellen Winslow putting on an unreal performance. This was an AFC divisional playoff game between San Diego and Miami in the old Orange Bowl. Now, we've been talking about some cold NFL games in the past couple of weeks, but this game was not one of those. But weather was a bit of a factor. It was 76 degrees with 80% humidity. The Air Coryell Chargers had led the league in scoring and passing, with Dan Fouts slinging it to Winslow, Charlie Joyner, and Wes Chandler that year. Chuck Muncie ran for 1,100 yards and led the league with 19 touchdowns that season. After scoring a field goal on the opening drive, the Chargers got their next points from special teams. Here's Don Criqui calling the action for NBC that night.
Tom Morris, rookie punter from Ohio State, hits the ball downfield. Up back, takes it not too deep. This is Wes Chandler, and he is all trouble in an open field, and Wes Chandler could go the distance. Wesley Chandler's inside the 10. He's in the end zone. And there are no markers down, and San Diego rips out to a 9-0 lead.
The Chargers added 2 more touchdowns in the first half, taking advantage of a kickoff recovery and then picking off a David Woodley pass to set up short scores. Miami coach Don Shula pulled Woodley in favor of Don Strock, and that sparked something with the Dolphins. It was 24-10 with 6 seconds left in the first half when Miami pulled out the old hook and lateral.
Hard throw. Look at that! What a play! What a play!
Not a lot of description there from Criqui, but Miami had the ball at the Chargers' 40. Strock hit Duriel Harris running the hook pattern, and he lateraled to Tony Nathan, who sprinted the final 25 yards for the touchdown to make it 24-17 Chargers at half. The Dolphins were able to carry that momentum to the third quarter and tied the game up at 24. San Diego quickly untied the game with a Fouts to Winslow TD pass. The Dolphins had been roughing up Winslow all day. They'd already busted his lip, requiring some stitches, blackened an eye, and left him with a stinger in his left shoulder that felt like the lightning bolt on his shoulder was constantly shocking him. But he kept on going. Winslow finished with an NFL playoff record 13 catches for 166 yards and a touchdown. But Miami punched back and scored 2 more behind the arm of Strock, taking their first lead 38-31 at the start of the fourth. It took nearly the rest of the quarter for the Chargers to find the tying points. With just over a minute to play and the Chargers at the Dolphins' 9, Fouts was pressured out of the pocket. He caught sight of Winslow at the goal line and threw it blindly to him off his back foot, but he overthrew him. Fortunately for Fouts, James Brooks was running in the back of the end zone and caught the ball for the touchdown. Brooks was not even supposed to be there. He was supposed to run an underneath route, but when Fouts scrambled, he scrambled with him. But there was still time on the clock, and still time for Miami to kick the game-winning field goal. Strock marched them down the field and set up Uwe von Schamann with a 43-yard attempt.
Kuchenberg snaps, and that's almost as big as the kick itself. Block, no good. We go to overtime. Overtime in Miami.
And Olmo shifts again.
That kick was blocked by the 6'5" Kellen Winslow. He called the blocked kick the greatest thrill of his life, and the game headed to overtime. By this point, though, the humidity was taking its toll on everybody, and folks on both sidelines were hoping for a quick end to OT. Well, that just did not happen, though. Rolf Benerschke shanked a 25-yarder that would have won it. Von Schamann had another one blocked, and the game went back and forth. After a Fouts to Joyner 40-yard hookup, Benerschke got a shot at redemption with a 29-yarder after nearly 14 minutes of OT, and he knocked it through to end it. Players collapsed on the field in exhaustion. The iconic image from this game is a shot of Winslow being helped off the field by 2 teammates and a towel wrapped around his neck. Winslow said he lost 13 pounds during the game, and he was running a temperature of 105 in the locker room after it. Ironically, the Chargers would lose the following week in Cincinnati in the second coldest game in NFL history, with a wind chill as low as -52. We've talked about Buddy Ryan a few times on this podcast. He's a guy who didn't really hide his feelings. If he was mad at you, well, he would tell you about it, and then he'd want to fight you. Well, on this day in 1994, that played out on television. Ryan was the defensive coordinator for the Houston Oilers at the time, and they were playing the New York Jets at the Astrodome in the final regular season game. The Oilers were up 14-0, and they had the ball with under a minute to play in the first half. Kevin Gilbride was the offensive coordinator for the Oilers, and he was wanting some more points before the half ended. Maybe, get it in the field goal range. Houston had the ball at their own 18, so maybe not the best place to air it out, but Gilbride called a pass play for QB Cody Carlson. But things went a little bit sideways. Carlson was sacked and he fumbled it away to the Jets. Ryan was not happy with Gilbride's call, and especially with the fumble putting his defense back on the field in a tough spot. So Ryan started yelling at Gilbride. Gilbride took a step towards him to tell him to shove it and got a Buddy Ryan fist to the face instead. The two were separated. Gilbride never talked to Ryan again. Ryan said Gilbride would be selling insurance in 2 years. Ryan never faced any repercussions and instead was rewarded for his defensive mastery in '93 when he was named the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals after the season ended. On this day in 1984, it was one of the greatest bowl games ever played. This was the Orange Bowl, featuring the top-ranked, undefeated, and heavily favored Nebraska Cornhuskers and the one-loss Miami Hurricanes playing for the national championship. Even though the Canes were playing in their home stadium and were 5th in the AP poll, they were 11-point underdogs. Miami built up a 17-0 lead in the first quarter. Nebraska fought back to make it 17-14 at half, due in part to a successful fumble-rooski that resulted in Dean Steinkuhler living out a lineman's dream of scoring a touchdown. Late in the game, though, Miami held a 7-point lead with 55 seconds left. Nebraska faced a 4th and 8 from the Canes' 24, and Turner Gill ran the option to perfection.
12-0 this season, ranked number 1 all year, but they're down by 7. Look at this play, Jeff Smith. Touchdown, Nebraska!
So now, down 1, Tom Osborne opted to go for 2 and the win instead of the game-tying PAT. And here's the reason. There was no tiebreaker system in effect like there is today. The game would have ended in a tie, and even though that would have secured the national championship for the Huskers, no doubt, Osborne did not want to do that and did not want to back his way into a national championship trophy. So they went for 2.
This is for the national championship for Nebraska.
Due to the number 2 Texas Longhorns losing to Georgia in the Cotton Bowl earlier in the day, Miami jumped from 5th to 1st, and they were crowned the national champs despite number 3 Auburn's 9-7 win over Michigan in the Sugar Bowl. Miami coach Howard Schnellenberger resigned after this game in anticipation of taking over as head coach of the proposed USFL team coming to Miami. That team never materialized, though. Whether it was Ted being Ted or it was the alcohol doing the talking, on this day in 1977, Ted Turner was suspended for a year by Major League Baseball Commissioner Bowie Kuhn for tampering with Gary Matthews in free agency. He was also fined $10,000, and the Braves lost their first-round pick in the next amateur draft. Now, the suspension was in response to Turner talking money with both San Francisco owner Bob Lurie and with Matthews. In essence, you could say, hey, come play for us, but you could not say, I'll pay you this much, or no matter what you pay him, I'll pay more, which is what he told Lurie during the previous World Series. Turner said he'd had about 6 vodka tonics and he was feeling no pain. He said it was all in fun, it didn't mean that he was going to do it. Turner did lure Matthews to the Atlanta Braves with a 5-year, $1.2 million contract. He spent 4 seasons in Atlanta, and he was an All-Star in '79. As for Turner, he appealed the suspension, and he got it reduced to a few months. He didn't waste any time getting in trouble with league officials again after his suspension ended. He drew the ire of National League President Chub Feeney later that year when he inserted himself as the manager of the team for 1 game. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. How different history would have been if Abraham Lincoln had accepted an invitation to join the Donner Party in its doomed trek to the West. James Reed was one of the leaders of the expedition that departed from Illinois, and he and Lincoln had close ties. In 1846, Lincoln considered joining the party, but decided against it to stay home with his pregnant wife, Mary Todd, and his firstborn son, a young Robert. Of course, the Donner Party got caught in bad weather in the Sierra Nevada mountains in the winter of 1846, with members of the group resorting to cannibalism to survive. Of the original 87, 39 died. That's all I've got for you today. Come on back tomorrow for another edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.